Hi, friends. So, for the first time in this channel's history, I will be doing a review of a TV show. Not a book, but a TV show. It's from Netflix and it's called 1983. And 1983 is clearly a wordplay on the title 1984 by George Orwell, because this is a dystopia TV series, and it's also alternate history. It was it was a show that ran on Netflix for a single season, and then it was in 2018, and it was quietly cancelled. Like I said, it's did I say it already? I don't know. It's the first Polish language Netflix series. And it was quietly cancelled. And what I mean by that is they never actually officially announced that they cancelled it after they ran one season in 2018. As of recording this video, it's still available, but I don't know how much longer it will be available on Netflix. So, it was quietly cancelled, and I don't know why they never just officially said cancelled. It's not a very difficult announcement to make. Now, so yeah, 1983. This show was written and it was created by and produced by someone named Joshua Long and Maciej Musial, who is also one of the main who has a starring role in the show, by the way. Yeah, so I don't know who this Joshua Long person is, and Maciej Musial, I don't know any of his other work, but I'm also going to tell you now that I'm not going to mention any other actors' names or any of the characters' names in this review, because they're Polish names that I'm worried that I will butcher in pronunciation. And I'm not very good at remembering names anyway. I might remember their faces, but I'm not good at remembering names. So, let's see. I have a checklist here to make sure I don't repeat myself. So I cannot pronounce those names. So anyway, so what is the show about? So it is, like I said earlier, it is an alternate history dystopia. It's Polish alternate history, and it's about in the year 1983. There was a series of terrorist bombings in Poland, in communist Poland. And as a result, there was a rally around the flag effect, because a lot of innocent people were killed. So there was a rally around the flag effect where all the people of Poland rallied around the government out of fear of the terrorists. And so that's when the Democrat opposition effectively ended. 20 years later, so it's two parallel storylines, the events leading up to 1983 and the events in 2003. 20 years later, so let's see, I'm just making sure I got it all. Yes, alternating timelines. 20 years later, the groups of characters are suddenly are given the scoop that it could have been a conspiracy. The 1983 bombings were a conspiracy by the government or whatever for this rally around the flag effect to happen. So there are two main characters. There's this police detective and this law school student. who are given a tip-off. More on that in a bit. Who are given a tip-off that there is something larger at play here of what happened in 1983 that led to the world that they are currently living in. So, and the conspiracy that they uncover, or that they not uncover, they investigate, may or may not actually be linked to the bombings. So yeah. So the law student, who is played by Maciej Musial, one of the show's producers and storyline creators, the law student gets a tip-off from a judge who, after graduating, just before graduating or whatever, his mentor, who is this judge, invites him to his home and offers him and has a chat with him. And he challenges him on various things like his loyalty to the state, and he gives him some kind of very subtle tip-off. So he gives him a framed photo of some of his colleagues from the past. So he shows a photo to the student, and then for whatever reason he says, keep the photo, I want you to have it. And also he has this set of documents. He has this binder of documents that he gives to the law student and says, hold on to it, I want you to examine them closer. And then a day later or so, that judge is mysteriously found murdered. And that leads the law student to go through these documents and go through this photograph. For whatever reason, this judge gave him this strange tip-off. So, yeah, and then meanwhile, the police detective helps the student along the way of uncovering this a conspiracy that came from just this subtle tip-off. Meanwhile, he's also investigating the murder of some person who did propaganda for an underground rebel group. Which now brings me to my next point. The series itself is not just the investigation of the conspiracy of the bombings, but the various different factions at play in 2003 dystopian Poland. So now let me introduce you to the various individuals and factions. So we have the police detective and the law student who are on the trail of this conspiracy. There is the ultimate puppet masters who pop up every now and then, who were responsible for the bombing. Their storyline is mainly shown in the past in 1983, leading up to the bombing. So the conspirators themselves, we don't know what their ulterior motives ultimately are. And so there's them. There's also there's the regular police that the detective works with, that the cop character works with, the regular police. And then there's the secret police, the SP, who are trying to cover up the conspiracy. The conspiracy that the law student and the detective are investigating may or may not be linked to the bombing, but they find a lot of people they question along the way murdered or silenced, or they find themselves under surveillance by the secret police. I believe they're called the SP, which is a Polish acronym. So there's the secret police. And then there's the wild card of this, of all these factions and these individuals. There's a general in the armed forces who is plotting a very complicated coup against the government. And and something along the lines of pretending to surrender nuclear weapons of mass destruction to some visiting Americans as a gesture of the two nations warming up, but meanwhile he's giving them to other third parties or something. He has this very complicated plot of playing both sides, the government and the Americans, the foreigners, the the capitalists, opponents to to the Warsaw Pact, NATO. So it's a very complicated coup, and I don't there was probably my most that was probably the plot line that I was most curious about, and the one that I was most frustrated with, because I wanted to know, is this general's plot to overthrow the government, to overthrow the party? He admits it. He wants to overthrow the party, and it's never explicitly shown where his soldiers are like storming the presidential palace with guns. That was actually left off screen, but it was hinted at that it happened. I actually don't. We don't know if his scheme to overthrow the government and his scheme to overthrow the government and the bombings of 1983 are connected. Like, the conspirators, are they working with this general? So they extend the party's time in power for decades. Yeah, literally decades. And they 20 years from 1983. They extend the party's power with the rally around the flag effect, only for them to have a coup 20 years later? Are those two events linked? I don't know. And finally, there's the rebel group that the police detective is also investigating, called the Light Brigade. They are trying to expose the conspiracy that the law student and the police detective are trying to uncover. They are trying to expose the truth about the government conspiracy that, like I said, may or may not be linked to the bombings of 1983. And I will not tell you what that conspiracy is that they're uncovering that may or may not be linked to the government, the bombings. Sorry. I'm not going to tell you that because that would be a spoiler. Anyway, so the coup, which at the end was successful, but it didn't show the consequences of the successful coup. I wanted to know, is this general more reconcilable with the rebels, or did the secret police, were the secret police just, which he opposes, which are enemies of this general, by the way, were the secret police just a useful tool for crushing the underground, the Light Brigade, while he was carrying out this coup? I don't know. So there's these. So long story short, there's all these factions vying for either trying to cover up the conspiracy, either trying to exposing the conspiracy, or just making power plays, just making attempts at gaining power. So I'm going to check off the stuff that I already mentioned. Let's see. So, okay. Oh, and by the way, in this alternate reality, in 2003, Al Gore is president. And I'm a sucker for alternate histories with Al Gore as president. The aesthetic is very, very interesting. Let's see, did I write it here? I'm trying to find it here. Just hold on a sec. Ah, yes. The aesthetic is austere but clean and glossy. So imagine, if you will, long granite and marble hallways with shoes clicking down them. There's also glass dividers amongst office cubicles, a lot of shiny metal and well-placed neon lights. It really emphasizes the dystopian aesthetic of brutalism or soft brutalism. And it was actually very aesthetically pleasing looking at the architecture and the style of this series. I liked it, clean and glossy. And to break the monotony of the continuous what do you call it? The continuous concrete and marble, to break up the dull, muted colors of the show, they also had a large Vietnamese community. There was a lot of Vietnamese immigration into Poland after the events of 1983, because Vietnam is a communist country also. So there were all these Vietnamese side characters, and the characters spent a lot of time in Little Vietnam. So the Vietnam aspect to this show made it more interesting, like added a little bit more flair to it. There were so like the police detective is often seen eating noodles, which was amusing, if you will. And because this is a Orwellian dystopian society, there's a lot of banned materials, a lot of banned literature and film, and so you will hear references to George Orwell's 1984 and Harry Potter. Yeah. So I'm just checking off the stuff here. So I have a theory. Well, no, not a theory. So I think the general, once he's overthrown the government, I've listened to his dialogue. He's going to lead Poland in a non-aligned direction. So he's not aligned with the Western Bloc, with NATO and the Americans, and he's not going to be aligned with the Soviet Union either. Once he overthrows the party, he does a non-aligned movement. He's not a capitalist, and neither is he a Democrat either. So he's not going to join the Western Bloc, but he is still overthrowing his own government for whatever reason. Maybe he's just interested in power. And he said the tyranny of the SP, so the tyranny of the secret police. So he kind of hates the secret police, and he doesn't like the fact that they're dependent on the Soviet Union economically, because for whatever reason, and that's the next thing I want to get to. For whatever reason, the economy is very well off, actually. Standards of living have gone up. So is communism working? Or is there like Chinese style reforms in Poland? I don't know. But the general, even with standards of living going up, the general still wants to overthrow the party. And I don't know why. My working theory is why he wants to make why he wants to make this country non-aligned. That's the main reason. My main theory is because he doesn't want to be dependent on the Soviet Union should they screw up. If that makes sense. So does communism actually work? Or was there Chinese-style reforms? Now, the Light Brigade, the rebels who are trying to expose the conspiracy, they're not very popular among the people. So that's why they're trying to expose government secrets. so that the people will rise up against the government, the Light Brigade. And the Light Brigade, of course, but at that point, the Light Brigade is very low on popularity because the government is actually working. People are content. There is no sign of dissent. There's no sign. There's very little sign that the people are unhappy with their absence of freedom of speech, because economically Poland is thriving. So there were some musings on freedom versus security, the discernment of the truth, and the human condition. There were some political and philosophical musings now and then introduced in the story, but they weren't very profound or deep. I didn't really go away much with it, really. You might disagree with me. You might think it was very deep, but no, for me, not so much. By the way, I also watched the show undubbed because there were multiple languages spoken. There was Vietnamese, there was Russian, there was English, and there was Polish, all being spoken in the show. So if there's like code switching, if people, sometimes different languages are important to the context. So I watched the show undubbed and read the English subtitles. Even though I could dub it, but then I think it would like screw up the dialogue between the characters who spoke different languages. Now let's see. So let's briefly touch on the technology in the show. It seems to be like on the edge of cutting edge high tech and blocky old-fashioned stuff that you'll find in the 50s and 60s. So it's a mishmash of old and new tech, and similar to the architecture and building aesthetics. A lot of the machines, the computer screens are smooth. There's not a lot of buttons on the control. Everything seems to be simplified. Now there is surveillance on the show, but nobody seems to be making an effort to speak in hushed whispers or being very careful where they talk, thinking that like there's telescreens in a room like in 1984. The concern about surveillance in the show is minimal. However, there is stuff like I think this reminds me a little bit of Chinese social credit. Like if you carry your ID, like you identify yourself, and then depending on your good standing in the society, you can enter this facility, or you are blocked out because your card says you're under surveillance, or if they do allow you through a one-way into a building, into an office, if they do allow you in, they might say, okay, this person is allowed to this information, or these allowed to these services, but not those. And so the higher up you are in the government rankings, or how good standing you are in terms of how well behaved you are, that is how much access you will get to certain places, and how much surveillance. So there's like a threshold, and so there's also like a threshold of when the government will arrest you. So you're doing one suspicious activity, they'll keep an eye on you, but they won't arrest you right away. You're doing 2 or 3, then they start denying you some services. You're not allowed to enter this train station. You're not allowed to enter this office building. And then 2 or 3, and then 4 or 5, they'll move in and arrest you. That's my interpretation of how it worked. So there was some surveillance, but not much. The characters weren't concerned most of the time if they were being heard or not. So here's the irony. Here's the irony. I found myself very frustrated with this show, especially with the general's plotline about overthrowing the government. There were so many layers and people with different competing motives. There was the story was so multi-layered, it left more questions than answers at the end. And maybe that could have been remedied with a season 2. But we never got that. So when I finished when the show ended, I was more confused, and wasn't resolved. There were just too many moving parts. So if you're going to make a shorter show, you should have less layering of all these different plot threads that don't come together by the end. So, but ironically though, this is the kind of show that I want more of. Shows catered to a specific country and demographic. More alternate history, please. More alternative history. More dystopia. But in the context of, in the cultural context of different countries. Like mine, for instance, Indonesia. I want more shows like this. But if they're going to be shorter, they shouldn't be as multi-layered. If you know what I mean? Yeah. So too multi-layered because the show was too short, but it was still good stuff. If it's a longer season, like if they have the budget or if they know it's going to be popular, then by all means make a show like this. But if it's going to be shorter, make it a bit more condensed. It would be my opinion. Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, I don't know why they canceled the show. Why they did not officially cancel the show, nor did they continue it. They just left it. They just left an question mark in my head at the end, in both the plot and both as to why aren't they continuing it, or why aren't they announcing that they are canceling it? Why didn't they just announce it? So, yeah, this show leaves me hungry for more, you know? And frustrated. But I still enjoyed watching it while I had it. Okay, it's available on Netflix now, but I don't know how much longer. You might want to watch it as soon as possible after watching this video if you're interested in what I have to say. Okay, thank you for listening. Goodbye.